Today we're going to do a review on a new saw, but I'm not going to bore you with unboxing or anything. If you look closely, it's super dirty because I've been using it for the last month trying to put it through its paces. We're going to cut wood, we're going to cut huge chunks of steel, and even brick. Let's do it. So what makes this different than a regular chop saw? And that's ability to cut steel, but it's just not the blade. What they actually do is the blade on here is designed to cut steel, but it's also designed to run at a lot lower RPM. So you can't just take their proprietary blade and put it on your chop saw. So this actually only spins, the saw actually only spins about 2,500 RPM, where a typical chop saw is going to spin 6,000 RPMs, twice as fast. So they do this, they slow it down so you're able to cut the steel. So this is actually, it's not the thinnest tubing, it's about 3 millimeters or between an 1/8 and a 1/16 thick steel. Pretty good square rectangle tubing. So when you're doing steel, what you really want to do is you want to clamp it down. You want to give it nice firm clamping pressure. They give you a decent clamp that clamps it down from the top, has a nice quick release button, save you a bunch of time, and you can clamp it down good. Nice and tight. There is a hole right here and over here where you can put a front mount clamp that looks something like this. It's an aftermarket thing, you have to purchase it separately, but it'll look something like this. This is from a different saw, but it just has a round peg that goes in and you're able to screw it and push stuff back. It actually is really flat and comes out here so you can do really wide stuff with it. But they also give you a nice flat edge along the back, so on stuff you're a little nervous about, you can really clamp it down. The metal, you really shouldn't, I mean, wood, 2x4, yeah, sure, you just hold it. You just chop right through, no big deal. Metal, I mean, this blade is gripping that hard, so last thing you want it to do is give you a kickback. So I highly recommend clamping it down good. Now, if this was a typical abrasive saw, this thing would have just been cherry red. There's a little bit of heat in it, but I definitely wouldn't be able to do this to it. But it's a nice, beautiful cut, and it's fast. It is amazingly fast. I have comparison videos between this is a dry cut saw versus just an abrasive saw. We got something here. Let's really give it a workout. We got some nice 1/4 inch wall tubing. What was that, nearly like 7 millimeter rectangle tubing. We'll throw this in here. And you know, if you had to cut this by hand with an angle grinder, you would be working at this for, you'd be working at it for a solid 7 minutes. And if you had to cut this with an abrasive saw, you wouldn't be too far behind that. So you can see how it puts so little heat into it that it doesn't even distort this paper thin edge. I wanted to cut it right, just barely on that edge, give a nice sharp edge, that there's no distortion in there at all. It didn't melt it and roll it over like it would with an abrasive. So one of the big questions is how long does this blade last? How much does it cost? Is it worthwhile? Can you use other blades? Yes. You can use other blades. It works with all standard wood blades. Here we have probably $150 Tenru woodworking blade, high-end woodworking blade. And you go like this. And yes, it worked just fine with that. I used quite a few cuts with that. Just trying it out with wood. Gave a very nice finish. This all-purpose blade on here that cuts the steel, aluminum, wood, plastic, anything else is sub 40 bucks, 30 to 40 bucks, somewhere in there. And it'll last as long as a user takes care of it. You know, and I say that because I've seen people with woodworking blades destroy woodworking blades in wood in a matter of time by people. Some people use a chop saw like a butcher uses a meat cleaver, where they just chop it as fast as they can, just bury it. Me cutting this piece just barely, I went slow. I let the saw do the cutting. I could have pushed 4 times harder and made it went at least twice as fast. But I'm just letting the blade do the work. I'm letting it go around and cool off. in between working, especially doing something this thick. I want it to give it a chance for the air to cool off those carbide tips. You know, I can just sit there and bury it till the metal's cherry red, and this is cherry red, and we're just forcing it through, and I'm mad at it because it didn't last more than 3 cuts. Or I can sit there and take my time, because this, you know, when I say take my time, when this thing's, you know, 10 times faster than an abrasive blade, but I can take my time, let it cut through, give myself nice beautiful cuts and quick cuts, and my blade will just keep lasting and lasting and lasting. This entire saw is pretty much metal, even this little guard, this little blade guard, but I think this little thing is cast aluminum, this whole thing is cast aluminum. The only thing that is plastic, which is like that fiberglass reinforced plastic, is maybe the handle and the motor housing. Everything else is all cast aluminum. Nice sturdy stuff. So I've loosened the blade, and I wanted to show you, it's reverse thread. They do allow, even though it's their proprietary blades, they give you a nice, it comes with a 1-inch bore, where their standard blade, you know, will come with a little 5/8 bore. They give you a little plate to flip over to run a standard woodworking blade on it. But we're going to try, and I'm going to show you doing some brick. Tighten it up. Here we go. Flip the little thing back over. Phillips screw. Lock it in. And we're ready to cut brick. There we go. Actually a really nice cut. You can see all the gravel and stuff it cut through. No problem. Apparently there was a pre-existing crack right there. But for cutting stuff like this, I did cut some tile and stuff with it, and it did a decent job of tile, but it's not a wet saw. It's a saw that, you know, if you needed to use occasionally to cut some brick or something else or not even occasionally, to do a couple projects, it would work just fine. Definitely recommend wearing a dust mask with it. Since you're doing dry stuff, you'd want to wear a respirator or something to keep the cement particles and stuff out of your lung. The vacuum does a pretty good job, but there's still a little bit floating around. Not much, but a little bit. Obviously, there has to be a few things I don't like about it, so I thought I'd go over those. My biggest gripe is the clamp. This clamp is far superior to the other clamps that I've used, but still, I don't think it's, I wish it was bigger, more adequate, stronger. Really could just clamp down on, and I really wish it came with that front clamp to really push material back, maybe with 2 holes, so it would really just hold material back. This does work, just wish it was a little bit beefier. The laser, I don't know if you can see it, I actually got knowing the saw, I actually put a piece of clear tape over the little lens. The way it's positioned, the way they kind of have to position it, the saw blade, when it peaks up, cuts off the little pieces of metal just right, they can come up and they can actually whack the lens, and they'll pit the lens, and then the laser's no longer super focused. As you can see right now, it's not super focused because it's got that piece of tape over it. I'll peel off that tape that I put on knowing that it did that, and now I got a nice crisp laser edge. Not that I really ever use a laser. I think the laser is a little bit gimmicky, but I wish they would do something about that. Maybe a piece of glass instead, or some sort of deflector. I don't know. Or I know on the Rage 3 they gave you a separate lens, and that's how I learned out that. And then the second lens, I put this little piece of tape over it, and then you can just peel the little piece of clear tape. So that's still a little bit of a gripe. Overall, the thing seems pretty sturdy. There's a little bit of wobble to it, just minuscule, but that's to be expected. I do hate how this channel out here, but that's pretty standard with any sliding compound miter, is it fills up with debris out here, and you kind of have to tip the saw back to get them to come out. I don't know if they could put a slot on the side or something that would discharge those and let the bigger chunks of these, like these rocks and stuff that I had to, they were sitting back here, actually I had to tip it forward and back to get it to go out the little slot. A little annoying. Something they did way better than the predecessors. The Rage 3 was an amazing saw, and I know a lot of people own that. This saw makes that one look, well, makes that one look old. This thing is far superior. First, I love the handle. I love the horizontal handle versus the pistol grip. It makes it easy, switch back and forth either hand. They made it very user-friendly, left-handed or right-handed. It's just right over the center of the blade. Perfect. They have a depth stop that I really enjoy right here that allows you to adjust how far you can go down in some situations, so you don't have to go all the way down. So it's pushed all the way down and stuff can still run under it. So you can do kerfs. So you don't have to cut all the way through a piece of material. You can cut 90% of the way, and on woodworking and stuff, you do that a whole bunch of times, make a bunch of kerfs, and then you could bend the piece. On a metal, you could do the same thing. Say I want to take a piece of exhaust tubing and I don't have a bender, I could chop 90% of the way through in a couple different spots, bend it up, have my curve, and just weld those little things closed. So that's a really cool feature, this adjustable stop. And it doesn't seem like it would ever get in the way because it's really nice and stiff and just backs out. The fence is adjustable to 90. When I first got it, everything seemed to be perfectly just 90 degree. Everything was just right on. It does tilt. I didn't do any of those features. And that all seemed to work. Just the 45 degree was a little bit off, but I played around with that and got that right on. It does have a nice adjustable needle, so you can, the needle's not perfect, you can adjust it there. Even down here, you can adjust the needle exactly where you want. Adjustment, that's all you want. So what really sets this apart is his ability to cut steel. Of course, aluminum, anything else, with the stock blade that it came with. So you don't even have to buy anything right out of the box. You can be cutting through huge I-beams, you can be cutting through, you can do your metalworking project, you can put baseboard in your house, you can do everything with it just right out of the box. Nothing has to be bought, nothing has to be done to do all of that. I don't think anything comes close to touching it. You know, you could not, it's around 200 bucks. You couldn't purchase the thing separately to do what this does. It's pretty impressive what it does. It seems very accurate, seems very reliable. I've tried to push it as hard as I could for the last month. Wanted to really make sure that it would stand up, and it seems like a great saw. An avid DIYer would never have an issue with this, but don't take my word for it. I'll put links below to, you know, reviews as well. People that have used this even more than I have, and they all seem to give it great reviews. I'll put those links below, and also, of course, where you can purchase it. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one. Bye.